In the 1970s, seniors living alone were 10-minute meal masters. They fed themselves from whatever they had in the pantry. Nobody believed pantry basics could taste this good until they tried it. Because they were smart, simple grilled cheese and hot soup became comfort food worthy. Then everyone assumed living alone meant eating poorly. Today we're sharing 30 quick meals that prove cooking alone never meant eating bad food. Grilled cheese was the meal seniors made in under 10 minutes when they were alone and wanted something warm. 2 slices of bread with butter on the outside and cheese in the middle. That was it. Nothing fancy. Nothing complicated. Just a hot sandwich that melted perfectly every single time. They buttered one side of each bread slice and placed them butter side down in a warm skillet. American cheese went between the unbuttered sides. The heat stayed medium-low because rushing ruined everything. The bottom slice turned golden while the cheese started softening. They pressed gently with the spatula. Not too hard, just enough to help the heat reach the cheese. When the first side looked crispy and brown, they flipped it carefully. The cheese was halfway melted now. Another 2 minutes and both sides came out golden with the cheese stretched and gooey in the center. The whole thing took maybe 8 minutes from start to finish. They ate it right off the skillet, still hot, with the cheese pulling apart in strings. Some added tomato slices, others dipped it in soup. Most ate it plain, because good cheese and crispy bread needed nothing else. That simple pleasure of standing at the stove watching bread turn golden slowly faded when microwaves promised speed nobody really needed. Mac and cheese straight from the box took 8 minutes and delivered exactly what seniors living alone needed when they wanted something filling. 1 pot, 1 box, boiling water, and a packet of cheese powder that turned into creamy comfort without any fuss or complicated steps. They brought water to a rolling boil in a small saucepan and poured in the dried macaroni. 7 minutes of stirring occasionally while the noodles softened and absorbed the water. When the timer went off, they drained it and stirred in butter, milk, and that bright orange cheese powder that somehow tasted better than it had any right to. The result came out creamy and hot with every noodle coated in cheese that stuck to the spoon. They ate it straight from the pot sometimes because fewer dishes meant less work. Some added pepper or a handful of crackers crushed on top. Most ate it plain because the cheese flavor satisfied completely on its own. The whole process required almost no effort and created something warm that filled them up without making them stand at the stove for an hour. That combination of speed and comfort made it perfect for nights when cooking felt like too much work. Homemade mac and cheese recipes tried to replace it, but nothing matched the simplicity of that blue box and 8 minutes. Pancakes from a mix proved that breakfast could still feel special even when cooking for one person in an empty kitchen. 1 cup of mix, 3/4 cup of water, stir until lumpy, pour into a hot skillet, flip when bubbles appeared. Done in 10 minutes with a stack of pancakes that tasted like Sunday morning. They measured the mix into a bowl and added water slowly while stirring with a fork. The batter stayed lumpy because overmixing made them tough. The skillet heated over medium with a little butter melting across the surface. They poured circles of batter and watched them spread and settle. When bubbles formed on top and the edges looked dry, they flipped each one carefully. Another minute, and both sides came out golden brown with that familiar, slightly sweet smell filling the kitchen. 3 or 4 pancakes stacked up on a plate with butter melting down the sides and syrup pooled in the center. They ate them while they were still warm enough to melt the butter. Some added blueberries to the batter. Others preferred them plain. Most ate them with syrup because pancakes never needed anything fancy to feel like a real breakfast. That morning ritual faded when breakfast became a granola bar eaten while standing at the counter instead of sitting down with something warm and homemade. Tuna melts showed up when seniors living alone wanted protein and comfort combined into one hot sandwich. A can of tuna, some mayonnaise, bread, and cheese. 10 minutes from start to finish with a sandwich that tasted better than anything from a diner. They drained the tuna and mixed it with enough mayonnaise to hold it together. Some added a little chopped celery or onion if they had it. Most kept it simple because tuna and mayo worked perfectly on their own. The mixture spread onto bread, cheese went on top. The whole thing went under the broiler for a few minutes. The broiler heated everything fast. The cheese melted and bubbled. The edges of the bread toasted crispy and brown. The tuna warmed through. They pulled it out when the cheese started turning golden in spots and cut it in half while it was still too hot to touch. That first bite combined warm tuna, melted cheese, and toasted bread in a way that satisfied completely. The cheese stretched when they pulled the halves apart. The tuna stayed moist inside. Every bite tasted like lunch used to taste before everything became complicated. Open-faced tuna melts disappeared when people forgot that simple ingredients heated together could create something this satisfying in less time than delivery took.
Before we move on, many of you asked in the comments where to find these recipes. We even received tons of email too, so we published these recipes on our website. The link is in the description. Let's continue.
Tomato soup with grilled cheese became the answer when one dish alone didn't feel like enough. A can of Campbell's tomato soup and a sandwich made together in 10 minutes flat. Nothing more satisfying existed for someone eating alone who wanted comfort that actually warmed them. The soup went into a small pot with 1 can of water or milk stirred through. The heat stayed medium while they stirred occasionally to keep it from sticking. The grilled cheese cooked in the skillet at the same time. Bread buttered on the outside. Cheese in the middle. Both things finished at almost the exact same moment. The soup came out smooth and hot with that familiar tomato sweetness that tasted exactly like childhood. The sandwich went on a plate beside the bowl. Some people dunked the sandwich directly into the soup. Others took bites between spoonfuls. Both ways worked perfectly because the combination never failed to satisfy. The whole meal took 10 minutes and used 1 pot, 1 skillet, and ingredients that stayed good in the pantry for months. Nobody needed a recipe. Nobody needed fancy ingredients, just soup and bread and cheese coming together the way they always had. That pairing disappeared when people started believing comfort food required restaurant reservations instead of a quiet kitchen and 10 minutes alone. 5 meals revealed. Grilled cheese made in 8 minutes with golden bread and melted strings of cheese. Tomato soup paired perfectly with hot sandwiches. Mac and cheese straight from the box satisfied completely. Pancakes from mix turned breakfast special again. Tuna melts combined protein and comfort. 25 more quick meals ahead. The best ones come next. Cheese quesadillas came together in 6 minutes when seniors wanted something warm that required almost no effort. 1 flour tortilla. Shredded cheese. A hot skillet. Fold it in half and wait for the cheese to melt. Nothing complicated, nothing fancy, just melted cheese inside a crispy tortilla that satisfied every single time. They heated a skillet over medium and placed the tortilla flat in the center. Cheese scattered across 1/2, not too much, just enough to melt through without spilling out the sides. They folded the empty half over the cheese and pressed down gently with the spatula. 2 minutes on the first side. The tortilla turned golden and crispy while the cheese started melting. They flipped it carefully. Another 2 minutes, and both sides matched with the cheese fully melted inside. The whole thing took maybe 6 minutes total. They cut it into triangles while it was still hot. The cheese stretched between the pieces. Some added salsa or sour cream. Others ate it plain because the combination of crispy tortilla and melted cheese needed nothing else to taste complete. That simplicity of cheese melting inside a folded tortilla disappeared when people started thinking quesadillas required chicken and peppers and complicated fillings instead of. Just cheese doing exactly what cheese does best. English muffin pizzas meant 10 minutes from start to finish when seniors living alone wanted pizza without ordering delivery or heating a frozen one. English muffins split in half. Pizza sauce from a jar. Shredded mozzarella. Broil until bubbly. Done. That fast. That easy. They split the English muffins and laid them cut side up on a baking sheet, a spoonful of pizza sauce spread across each half. Not too much, just enough to cover the surface. Cheese sprinkled over the top in an even layer. Some added pepperoni or olives. Most kept it simple with just sauce and cheese. The baking sheet went under the broiler for about 5 minutes. The cheese melted and started bubbling. The edges of the muffins toasted golden. The sauce heated through. They pulled them out when the cheese turned spotty brown on top and let them cool for a minute before eating. The result tasted like pizza without the weight or the cost. The English muffin base stayed crispy on the outside and soft inside. The cheese stretched when they bit into it. 2 muffin halves made a perfect single serving. Those quick personal pizzas faded when frozen pizza became cheaper and people forgot how good fresh melted cheese on a toasted muffin could taste. Omelets folded over cheese were what seniors made in 7 minutes when they wanted real food that felt more substantial than toast. 2 eggs, a little milk, shredded cheese, butter in the pan, fold it over and slide it onto a plate. Simple, fast, satisfying. They cracked 2 eggs into a bowl and whisked them with a splash of milk until everything mixed smooth. A small skillet heated over medium with butter melting and spreading across the surface. The eggs poured in and spread to fill the pan. They let it cook undisturbed for a minute until the edges started setting. A spatula lifted the edges gently so the uncooked egg could flow underneath. When the top looked almost set but still slightly wet, cheese sprinkled across one half. They folded the other half over the cheese and let it sit for another minute. The omelet slid onto a plate with the cheese melted inside and the eggs cooked through, but still soft. Some added diced tomatoes or onions. Others kept it plain. Most ate it with toast because eggs and cheese together created something filling without being heavy. That technique of folding eggs around melted cheese disappeared when scrambled became the default, and people forgot omelets took the same amount of time but tasted more special. Turkey melts reminded them that leftover turkey or deli slices could become something hot and satisfying in 10 minutes. Sliced turkey, bread, cheese, butter on the outside, grill it like a sandwich. Done. That simple combination turned cold meat into comfort food. They laid turkey slices on bread and topped them with cheese. Swiss or cheddar worked equally well. The second slice of bread went on top. Butter spread across the outside of both slices. The whole thing went into a warm skillet butter side down. The heat stayed medium-low so the cheese had time to melt before the bread burned. They pressed down gently with a spatula while the bottom turned golden and crispy. After 3 minutes, they flipped it carefully. Another 3 minutes, and both sides matched with the cheese fully melted and the turkey warmed through. The sandwich came out hot with the cheese binding the turkey to the bread. They cut it in half and ate it while the cheese still stretched between the pieces. Some added tomato or mustard. Most ate it plain because turkey and melted cheese needed nothing else. Hot turkey sandwiches faded when people started thinking leftover turkey belonged in the fridge until it got thrown out instead of becoming something warm and good. Bobak chicken on a bun required nothing but rotisserie chicken pulled apart and mixed with bottled sauce heated for 5 minutes. Shredded chicken, bobak sauce, a soft bun, heat it through. Done. That combination created something that tasted like hours of work but took almost no time. They pulled meat off a rotisserie chicken from the store and shredded it with their hands or 2 forks. The chicken went into a small pot with enough bobak sauce to coat everything. The heat stayed medium-low while they stirred occasionally until it heated through completely. The mixture came out hot and saucy, with the chicken soaking up the smoky sweet flavor of the sauce. They spooned it onto a soft hamburger bun and ate it immediately while it was still warm. Some added coleslaw on top. Others ate it plain because the chicken and sauce combination satisfied completely on its own, The whole thing took maybe 5 minutes and used one pot of ingredients that kept for days. Nothing required actual cooking from scratch, just assembly and heating. Those quick bebuk chicken sandwiches disappeared when people convinced themselves good food required following complicated recipes instead of pulling together simple ingredients. That already tasted good. Buttered noodles were what they made when the cupboard was nearly empty but comfort was still required. Water boiled in a pot with salt added generously. 8 ounces of egg noodles dropped into the rolling boil, and the package said 10 minutes, but they tested at 8. A fork pulled one strand out, and if it bent without snapping it, was done. They drained the noodles in a colander over the sink, but never rinsed them because the starch had to stay on for the butter to cling properly. The hot, empty pot sat waiting on the stove, and the drained noodles went back in, still steaming. 3 tablespoons of butter dropped on top and melted instantly from the heat of the noodles. They stirred it through gently until every strand was coated and glistening with melted butter. Grated Parmesan cheese came next, and it had to be the real kind from the block, not the powdered stuff in the green can. 2 handfuls of cheese went in, and they tossed everything together until the cheese melted slightly and coated the buttery noodles. Salt and pepper adjusted to taste, and some added a pinch of garlic powder if they had it. The whole process took 10 minutes from start to finish and resulted in a bowl of simple comfort that tasted like butter and cheese and home. The noodles stayed tender, and the butter made them rich, and the Parmesan added just enough sharpness to keep it interesting. They ate it straight from the pot sometimes when nobody was watching, because washing an extra bowl felt unnecessary. Buttered noodles disappeared when simple stopped feeling like enough, and every meal needed protein and vegetables and complexity to count as real food. A baked potato in the microwave saved them when turning on the oven felt impossible during summer heat or when energy bills were already too high. 1 large russet potato scrubbed clean under cold running water until the skin was completely dirt-free. A fork stabbed the potato several times all over, creating steam vents so it wouldn't explode during cooking. The potato went on a microwave-safe plate and cooked on high power for 5 minutes. They flipped it over carefully using a fork because it was already hot. Another 4 or 5 minutes on high, and the potato was done when it felt soft, when squeezed gently with an oven mitt protecting their hand. Some wrapped it in a damp paper towel before microwaving, which kept the skin from getting too tough and leathery. The cooked potato rested for 2 minutes while they gathered toppings from the refrigerator. A knife sliced it open lengthwise, and their fingers squeezed both ends, pushing up so the fluffy white inside burst through the cut. Butter went in first, melting immediately into the hot potato. Sour cream came next in a generous dollop, shredded cheddar cheese sprinkled over the top, salt and pepper, chopped green onions if they had them, crumbled bacon if there were leftovers. The potato became a complete meal in less than 10 minutes total. The skin stayed edible even from the microwave if it was cooked right. The inside was fluffy and light and absorbed butter like a sponge. Baked potatoes disappeared when convenience foods promised complete meals without even that small amount of effort required. Instant oatmeal was the morning savior when time ran short, but going hungry was not an option for anyone living alone. 1 packet of instant oatmeal torn open and emptied into a microwave-safe bowl. The flavor was already in the packet, whether it was maple brown sugar or apples and cinnamon or plain original. Water measured according to the packet instructions, usually about half a cup or slightly more. The water poured over the dry oats and stirred once to mix. The bowl went into the microwave for 1.5 minutes on high power. They watched it carefully because oatmeal boiled over fast and made a mess that was annoying to clean from the microwave interior. The microwave beeped, and the bowl came out hot, with the oatmeal thick and creamy and steaming. It sat for 30 seconds to cool slightly and finish thickening. Then came the toppings that made it special instead of just fuel. A pat of butter melted on top, a drizzle of honey or maple syrup for extra sweetness, a handful of raisins or dried cranberries, sliced banana if one was sitting on the counter, chopped walnuts or pecans for crunch, a splash of milk or cream to make it creamier, cinnamon sprinkled over everything. The combinations were endless depending on what was available in the pantry. The whole process took 3 minutes and resulted in a warm, filling breakfast that stuck to the ribs until lunch. Instant oatmeal represented practical nutrition without fuss or complexity. It disappeared when protein shakes and breakfast bars promised the same nutrition in even less time without requiring a bowl or spoon or microwave. Cream of wheat was the hot cereal their grandmother made on cold mornings when the house was drafty and warmth had to come from the inside. Out. Water or milk measured into a small saucepan and brought to a gentle boil on the stove. Milk made it richer and creamier, but water worked fine when milk was running low before grocery day. Cream of wheat measured from the box according to the package directions, usually about 3 tablespoons for 1 serving. The dry cereal stirred slowly into the boiling liquid while whisking constantly so no lumps formed. Lumps ruined the smooth, creamy texture everyone loved. The mixture cooked for 2.5 minutes, stirring frequently while it thickened into a smooth, hot porridge. The heat turned off and the pot came off the burner. The hot cereal poured into a bowl and a tablespoon of butter dropped right in the center. The butter melted immediately, creating a golden pool. Brown sugar or white sugar sprinkled generously over the top. Some added a splash of cream or milk around the edges. A light dusting of cinnamon on top if they wanted it. The first spoonful was always the best when everything was still steaming hot. The texture was perfectly smooth and creamy like a warm hug in a bowl. The butter made it rich, and the sugar made it sweet, and the warmth spread through the chest. Cream of wheat disappeared when instant packets and microwavable cups replaced stovetop cooking. The ritual of stirring and watching and waiting got lost when convenience eliminated every extra minute. Instant grits were the Southern staple that sustained them through countless mornings when something warm and filling was needed fast. Water measured into a small pot and brought to a rolling boil on the stovetop. The packet of instant grits torn open, and the contents poured slowly into the boiling water while stirring constantly. The stirring was important because grits clumped badly if you just dumped them in without mixing. The heat reduced to low, and the grits cooked for 5 minutes, stirring occasionally while they thickened and absorbed all the water. The texture changed from soupy to thick and creamy. A generous pat of butter went in and stirred through until it melted completely and made the grits glossy. Salt and pepper added to taste. Then came the cheese, and it had to be real shredded cheddar, not the processed singles. A handful of sharp cheddar stirred through until it melted into the hot grits, creating creamy, cheesy perfection. Some added a splash of milk or cream at the end to make them even creamier. Others liked them thick enough to hold a spoon upright. The grits were ready in 5 minutes total and tasted like comfort and home in the South. Each spoonful was smooth and buttery and cheesy with just enough texture from the corn. They ate them for breakfast or as a side dish or even as a main meal when money was tight and the pantry was nearly bare. Instant grits disappeared when grab-and-go breakfast became the standard and nobody had 5 minutes to stand at the stove stirring a pot anymore. 5 quick comfort meals revealed. Buttered noodles from an almost empty cupboard. Microwave baked potato in 10 minutes. Instant oatmeal with endless toppings. Cream of wheat smooth and sweet. Instant grits with butter and cheese. 5 more easy meals ahead. Keep watching. Instant ramen was the cheap meal they transformed into something better with just a few additions from the refrigerator. Water boiled in a small pot on the stove. The brick of dried noodles dropped into the boiling water and cooked for 3 minutes until they softened and separated. While the noodles cooked, they cracked an egg into a small bowl, some chopped green onions if they had them, a handful of frozen vegetables straight from the bag. The timer went off and the vegetables dumped into the pot with the noodles. The egg stirred quickly into the boiling broth, creating thin ribbons of cooked egg throughout. The flavor packet opened and half of it stirred in, not the whole thing, because the whole packet made it too salty. Sesame oil drizzled on top if they had it. A splash of soy sauce for extra depth. The green onions scattered over the top. Hot sauce added for those who wanted heat. The whole thing poured into a bowl and eaten immediately while still steaming hot. The noodles stayed chewy, and the broth was savory, and the egg added protein and richness. The vegetables provided color and nutrition and made it feel like a real meal instead of just cheap noodles. 7 minutes from start to finish, including all the upgrades. The cost was less than $1 per serving, even with the additions. Upgraded ramen disappeared when even 7 minutes felt like too much time, and meal replacement drinks promised complete nutrition without cooking or dishes or effort. A breakfast bagel sandwich was what they made when toast felt too plain, but a full breakfast felt like too much work. One bagel sliced in half and dropped into the toaster. While it toasted, they heated a small non-stick skillet over medium heat with a little butter. One egg cracked into the skillet and the yolk broken with a fork. Some scrambled it right there in the pan, others let it cook like a flat fried egg that fit perfectly on the round bagel. Salt and pepper sprinkled on top. The egg cooked for about 2 minutes until set. A slice of cheese laid on top of the hot egg so it melted from the residual heat. The toasted bagel popped up golden and warm. Butter spread on both halves if they wanted it. The egg and melted cheese went on the bottom half. Some added a slice of deli ham or turkey. Others kept it simple, with just egg and cheese. The top bagel half pressed down gently, creating a complete handheld breakfast. The bagel stayed chewy on the inside and slightly crispy on the outside from toasting. The egg provided protein. The cheese added richness and creaminess. The whole thing could be eaten with one hand while getting ready for the day. 7 minutes total from slicing the bagel to taking the first bite. Breakfast bagel sandwiches disappeared when drive-through breakfast became faster than making it at home, and nobody wanted to wash a pan before leaving for work. Egg salad sandwiches were what they made from leftover hard-boiled eggs when lunch needed to happen fast. The eggs were already cooked and peeled and waiting in the refrigerator from earlier in the week. 3 or 4 eggs chopped roughly with a knife on a cutting board. The pieces did not have to be perfect or uniform. Some preferred them chunky, others chopped them finer. The chopped eggs went into a small bowl. Mayonnaise added about 2 tablespoons, or enough to bind everything together without making it soupy. A spoonful of yellow mustard for tang. Salt and pepper to taste. Some added a little chopped celery for crunch if they had it. Others mixed in a small amount of sweet pickle relish. The mixture stirred together until everything combined. 2 slices of soft white bread or wheat bread laid out. The egg salad spread thickly on one slice. Lettuce added on top if they had it. The second slice of bread placed on top. The sandwich cut in half diagonally because it always tasted better that way for reasons nobody could explain. The bread stayed soft and the egg salad was creamy and rich with a slight tang from the mustard. Each bite was smooth and satisfying. The whole thing came together in 5 minutes using ingredients that were already prepared and waiting. Egg salad sandwiches disappeared when pre-made sandwiches from convenience stores and cafes became the easier option, and hard-boiling eggs in advance stopped being part of the weekly routine. Pimento cheese sandwiches were the southern secret that people outside the region never quite understood, but those who grew up with it craved regularly. The pimento cheese was already made and waiting in a container in the refrigerator because nobody made it fresh for just one sandwich. Sharp cheddar cheese shredded fine, mixed with softened cream cheese and mayonnaise, and chopped pimentos from a jar. The mixture was supposed to sit overnight, so the flavors blended together properly. 2 slices of soft white bread laid out on a plate. A generous scoop of the pimento cheese spread thickly on one slice. The spreading had to be thick enough to taste it in every bite, but not so thick it squished out the sides when you bit down. Some added a layer of crisp lettuce. Others preferred it plain with just the pimento cheese. The second slice of bread pressed gently on top. The sandwich cut in half. The bread stayed pillowy soft. The pimento cheese was creamy and tangy and slightly sharp from the cheddar. The pimentos added little pops of sweetness and color throughout. The texture was smooth and spreadable, almost like a thick dip. People either loved pimento cheese or found it completely baffling. There was no middle ground. Those who loved it kept a container in the refrigerator at all times and ate it on sandwiches and crackers and straight from the spoon when nobody was watching. Pimento cheese sandwiches disappeared outside the South when regional foods became less common and homogenized national tastes took over. The tradition stayed alive in small pockets but faded everywhere else. A turkey club sandwich was the meal they made when a regular sandwich felt too simple, but cooking felt like too much. 3 slices of bread toasted golden in the toaster or under the broiler for a few minutes, watching carefully so they did not burn. While the bread toasted, they cooked 3 strips of bacon in a skillet until crispy or used pre-cooked bacon heated quickly in the microwave. The bacon drained on a paper towel. 1 tomato sliced into thin rounds. Lettuce leaves pulled from the head and rinsed. Mayonnaise spread on all 3 slices of toasted bread. The first slice of toast went down as the base. Sliced deli turkey layered on top, usually 3 or 4 slices folded to fit. The second slice of toast placed on top of the turkey. Crispy bacon strips laid across. Tomato slices arranged over the bacon. Lettuce tucked on top of the tomato. The third slice of toast placed on top, completing the triple-decker structure. 4 toothpicks pushed down through the sandwich in each quadrant to hold everything together. A sharp knife cut the sandwich into 4 triangles. Each triangle held together by a toothpick. The layers stayed distinct when you bit down. The toast provided crunch. The turkey was savory and lean. The bacon added smokiness and salt. The tomato and lettuce added freshness. The mayonnaise tied everything together with creamy richness. Turkey club sandwiches disappeared when even 8 minutes felt like too long, and pre-made sandwiches from the deli case became the default lunch option. Avocado toast with egg was the simple meal they made when something healthy and filling was needed without complicated cooking or expensive. Ingredients from specialty stores. 1 slice of Hearty whole grain bread or sourdough went into the toaster and toasted until golden brown and slightly crispy on the surface, but still soft enough to bite through easily. While the bread toasted, they heated a small non-stick skillet over medium heat with a tiny bit of butter or cooking spray. 1 egg cracked carefully into the hot skillet and cooked however they preferred it. Some liked it fried with the yolk runny so it burst and ran when cut. Others scrambled it quickly right there in the pan. A few poached it in simmering water in a separate small pot if they wanted to be fancy about it. The egg cooked for about 3 or 4 minutes depending on the method and desired doneness. While the egg cooked, they prepared the avocado on a cutting board. 1/2 of a ripe avocado scooped out with a spoon and placed in a small bowl. A fork mashed it roughly until it reached a spreadable consistency. Some left it chunky. Others mashed it completely smooth. A squeeze of fresh lemon juice or lime juice mixed in to prevent browning and add brightness. Salt and pepper to taste. A pinch of red pepper flakes if they wanted a little heat. The toasted bread came out hot and went onto a plate. The mashed avocado spread thickly across the entire surface of the toast, covering it completely from edge to edge in a thick green layer. The cooked egg placed carefully on top of the avocado. More salt and pepper sprinkled over the egg. Some added everything bagel seasoning if they had it in the pantry. Others drizzled hot sauce or sriracha across the top. Cherry tomatoes halved and scattered around the plate if they had them. Pizza bread was the after-school snack they made when real pizza was too expensive, but the craving was real and immediate and needed satisfying right now. Slices of regular sandwich bread laid out on a baking sheet, or pieces of Italian bread or French bread sliced lengthwise if they had it in the house. The bread stayed plain without any butter or oil because the toppings provided enough moisture and fat. Jarred pizza sauce or spaghetti sauce spooned onto each slice of bread and spread evenly across the surface, leaving just a small border around the edges. Some used a spoon to spread it. Others used the back of the spoon or a butter knife. The sauce layer did not need to be thick because too much sauce made the bread soggy and unpleasant. Shredded mozzarella cheese sprinkled generously over the sauce, covering it completely in a thick, even layer. The cheese was the most important part because it melted and bubbled and browned and made everything taste like real pizza. Some added pepperoni slices if they had them in the refrigerator. Others used cooked sausage crumbles or diced ham or whatever lunch meat was available. A light sprinkle of dried oregano or Italian seasoning over the top added authentic pizza flavor. Garlic powder dusted across everything if they had it. The baking sheet went under the broiler in the oven set to high. The broiler had to preheat first or the cheese would not brown properly. They watched it carefully through the oven door window because broilers burned things fast. 3 to 5 minutes and the cheese melted completely and started bubbling. Another minute or two and brown spots appeared across the cheese surface. The baking sheet came out when the cheese was melted and bubbly and golden brown in spots, but before anything turned black and burned. The pizza bread rested on the pan for 1 minute so the cheese could set slightly and not slide off in one molten sheet when they tried to eat it. The bread stayed crispy on the bottom and soft in the middle. The sauce was tangy and sweet. The cheese was gooey and stretchy and salty. Each bite tasted surprisingly close to real pizza, considering it was just bread and jarred sauce and cheese. Chipped beef on toast was the military meal they brought home from service and continued making because it was cheap and filling and reminded them of younger days. Dried beef came in small glass jars on the shelf at the grocery store near the canned meats. The beef slices were paper thin and extremely salty and had to be prepared correctly, or the whole dish tasted like eating a salt lick. The jar opened and the beef slices pulled out carefully and rinsed thoroughly under cold running water to remove excess salt. The rinsed beef patted dry with paper towels, then torn or cut into bite-sized strips. Butter melted in a medium skillet over medium heat. 2 tablespoons at least. The butter had to get hot and foamy. All-purpose flour sprinkled into the melted butter about 2 tablespoons. A whisk stirred the butter and flour together constantly for about 1 minute, creating a roux that smelled nutty and toasted. Milk poured in gradually while whisking constantly to prevent lumps from forming. The mixture looked thin at first, but thickened as it heated, and the flour cooked. 2 cups of milk total created a medium-thick white sauce. Salt and pepper added carefully. The salt had to be minimal because the beef added plenty. The torn dried beef strips stirred into the white sauce and heated through for about 2 minutes. The beef softened in the hot cream sauce and released its salty flavor throughout. Some added a dash of Worcestershire sauce for depth. Others included a pinch of cayenne pepper for subtle heat. Bread toasted in the toaster until golden brown and crispy. 2 slices per person. The toast went onto plates, and the heart-creamed beef spooned generously over the top, covering the toast completely. The cream sauce soaked into the toast, softening it slightly. Each bite combined crispy toast with creamy, salty beef in rich white sauce. The whole thing tasted like comfort food from another era when canned and jarred meats were staples and cream sauces appeared at every meal. Some people called it SOS, using the military slang term. Others just called it creamed beef. Either way, it was cheap protein stretched with flour and milk to feed more people. Refried bean and cheese burritos were the quick meal they made when protein was needed fast and cooking meat felt like too much work or expense. 1 can of refried beans opened and spooned into a microwave-safe bowl. The beans straight from the can were thick and paste-like and needed loosening. A splash of water stirred in to thin them slightly to a spreadable consistency. The bowl covered loosely with a paper towel and microwaved on high for about 2 minutes, stirring halfway through until the beans were hot throughout and steaming. While the beans heated, they warmed flour tortillas to make them pliable and easy to roll without cracking. One tortilla at a time, heated directly over a gas burner flame for about 10 seconds per side, getting light brown spots. Or if they had an electric stove, the tortilla went into a dry skillet over medium-high heat for about 30 seconds per side. Or the fastest way was wrapping tortillas in a damp paper towel and microwaving for 20 seconds. The tortillas had to be warm and soft or they tore when rolled. One warm tortilla laid flat on a plate. A generous scoop of hot refried beans spread down the center, leaving space on the sides and ends. Shredded cheese sprinkled over the hot beans. Cheddar or Mexican blend or whatever was in the refrigerator. The hot beans melted the cheese slightly. Some added a spoonful of salsa or hot sauce. Others kept it simple with just beans and cheese. The bottom edge of the tortilla folded up over the filling. The left and right sides folded in toward the center. The whole thing rolled tightly away from the body, creating a neat cylinder with the seam on the bottom. The rolled burrito could be eaten immediately or placed seam side down in a hot skillet to crisp up the outside for about 1 minute per side. The tortilla stayed soft and warm. The beans were creamy and savory with earthy flavor. The melted cheese added richness and salt. The whole thing was satisfying and filling and provided protein and fiber. One burrito made a complete meal, or two made dinner for someone very hungry. A hot dog with a bun was the ultimate simple meal when hunger arrived suddenly, and cooking anything complicated was absolutely out of the question. One beef hot dog pulled from the package in the refrigerator. There were multiple ways to cook it, and everyone had their preferred method. Some boiled water in a small pot and dropped the hot dog in and let it simmer for about 5 minutes until it was heated through and plump. Others preferred the skillet method, where a little oil heated in a pan and the hot dog rolled around until it developed brown, crispy spots on the outside, which added texture and deeper flavor. A few people microwaved it on a plate for about 45 seconds, which worked, but did not brown it at all. The best method was splitting it lengthwise and cooking it split side down in a hot skillet until it got crispy and caramelized. While the hot dog cooked, they prepared the bun. A soft hot dog bun pulled from the package. Some toasted it lightly in the toaster oven or under the broiler for about 1 minute until it was warm and slightly crispy. Others steamed it by wrapping it in a damp paper towel and microwaving for 10 seconds, which made it soft and pillowy. The simplest method was just using it straight from the package at room temperature. The cooked hot dog nestled into the bun. Then came the toppings, and everyone had strong opinions about what belonged on a hot dog. Classic yellow mustard squeezed in a line down the length. Ketchup for those who liked it, though some people claimed ketchup on hot dogs was wrong. Sweet pickle relish spooned on top. Chopped raw onions if they had them. Sauerkraut from a jar if they were in the mood. Shredded cheese melted on top if it was still hot enough. Chili spooned over everything if there were leftovers in the refrigerator. The first bite combined the savory, salty hot dog with the soft bun and whatever toppings were chosen. The simplicity was the appeal. No plates needed, no utensils required. The whole meal could be eaten standing at the kitchen counter or sitting on the couch. 5 minutes from start to finish, including cooking and assembly. Rehook. 5 more quick meals revealed. Avocado toast with egg in 8 minutes. Pizza bread under the broiler. Chipped beef on toast from military days. Refried bean burritos for $1. Beef hot dogs are cooked 3 different ways. 5 final meals ahead, almost done. Canned soup with crackers was the sick day comfort and the too tired to cook solution, and the meal that appeared when everything else felt like two. Much effort. 1 can of soup pulled from the pantry shelf. Campbell's was the standard. Tomato soup. Chicken noodle. Cream of mushroom. Vegetable beef. The choices were endless, but everyone had their favorite that brought back childhood memories. The can opened with a can opener or the pull tab if it was a newer can. The condensed soup dumped into a small pot on the stove. 1 can of water measured using the empty soup can and poured into the pot with the soup. Some soups called for milk instead of water, which made them richer and creamier, especially the cream-based varieties. The pot heated over medium heat, stirring occasionally to prevent sticking on the bottom. The soup started cold and thick and gradually warmed and thinned as it heated. Little bubbles appeared around the edges first. Stirring kept the temperature even throughout. After about 5 minutes, the soup was hot enough to serve steaming in a bowl. While the soup heated, they gathered the crackers. Saltine crackers were traditional. The crackers came in a sleeve inside the box. Some people crushed them directly into the hot soup, creating a thick mixture that was part soup, part mush. Others placed whole crackers on the side and ate them alternately with spoonfuls of soup. A few people spread butter on the crackers first before eating them with the soup. The crackers provided crunch and salt and turned the liquid soup into something more substantial. The soup bowl sat on the table with steam rising from the surface. The first spoonful burned the tongue if you were not careful. The soup tasted salty and comforting and exactly like it always had for decades. The consistency was thin enough to eat with a spoon, but thick enough to feel satisfying. The crackers softened slightly when dunked in the hot liquid. Canned soup with crackers required no skill and no fresh ingredients and no planning ahead. The soup stayed shelf-stable in the pantry for years. The crackers lasted for months. Together they made a complete meal that fed one person for less than $2 total. The warmth soothed sore throats. The salt replaced electrolytes. Cottage cheese with fruit was the protein-packed meal or snack they ate when something healthy and quick was needed without any cooking whatsoever. 1 container of cottage cheese pulled from the refrigerator. Small curd or large curd depending on personal preference. Low fat or full fat depending on dietary goals. The texture was lumpy and wet and not appealing to everyone, but those who liked it really loved it. A generous scoop of cottage cheese measured into a bowl. Some people ate it directly from the container to avoid washing a dish, but that only worked when living alone and not sharing the container with anyone else. Fresh fruit came next, and the options were endless depending on what was in season and what was sitting in the fruit bowl or refrigerator. Sliced strawberries were popular especially in summer. Fresh blueberries scattered over the top. Sliced peaches when they were ripe and sweet. Pineapple chunks from a can drained and spooned over. Sliced banana, which was available year-round and inexpensive. Halved grapes in red or green. Cubed cantaloupe or honeydew melon. Apple slices cut thin and arranged on top. The fruit added natural sweetness and bright flavor that contrasted with the tangy, mild flavor of the cottage cheese. Some people added other toppings to make it more interesting and substantial. A drizzle of honey over everything. A sprinkle of cinnamon or nutmeg. A handful of granola for crunch. A spoonful of wheat germ for extra nutrition. Chopped walnuts or sliced almonds scattered on top. A few raisins or dried cranberries mixed through. Everyone had their preferred combination that made cottage cheese with fruit feel like their personal creation. The whole thing came together in 2 minutes with 0 cooking required. The cottage cheese provided protein and calcium. The fruit added vitamins and fiber and natural sugars. The combination was filling enough to count as a light meal or substantial snack. The flavors were clean and fresh and not heavy. Cottage cheese with fruit represented practical nutrition from an era when diet culture focused on protein and calcium and low-fat dairy. Bodybuilders ate it. Dieters ate it. Health-conscious seniors ate it. The cottage cheese diet was an actual thing in the 1970s where people ate cottage cheese with every meal to lose weight. Greek yogurt with granola and berries was the modern protein breakfast that replaced cottage cheese when thick, creamy texture became more appealing than lumpy curds. 1 container of plain or vanilla Greek yogurt scooped into a bowl. The Greek yogurt was thicker and tangier and higher in protein than regular yogurt, which made it more filling and satisfying. Plain yogurt had less sugar, but needed toppings to make it palatable. Vanilla yogurt was already slightly sweet and easier to eat without additions. Some bought individual single-serve cups, others bought large tubs and portioned it out, which was more economical for regular consumption. Fresh berries came next, and any combination worked depending on what was available and affordable at the time. Fresh blueberries scattered over the surface, sliced strawberries arranged on top, fresh raspberries if they were on sale, which was rare because they were expensive, blackberries when they were in season, a mix of all the berries if someone was feeling fancy. Frozen berries worked too, especially in winter when fresh berries were tasteless and overpriced. The frozen berries thawed slightly in the yogurt, creating a cold, creamy mixture with pockets of icy fruit. Granola sprinkled generously over the top added crunch and sweetness and texture contrast to the creamy yogurt. Store-bought granola from the cereal aisle or bulk section. Honey almond granola. Maple pecan granola. Plain oat granola. Chocolate granola if they wanted dessert for breakfast. The granola had to go on right before eating or it got soggy and lost its crunch. Some people added it gradually as they ate to keep it crispy throughout the meal. Other toppings made frequent appearances depending on personal preference and what was in the pantry. A drizzle of honey across the top. A spoonful of peanut butter stirred through. A sprinkle of chia seeds or flax seeds for extra nutrition and fiber. Sliced banana for natural sweetness. A handful of chopped nuts for healthy fats. A few dark chocolate chips if they wanted to pretend dessert was breakfast. The whole bowl came together in 3 minutes with zero cooking and minimal cleanup. The Greek yogurt provided substantial protein that kept hunger away until lunch. The berries added antioxidants and vitamins and natural sweetness. The granola provided satisfying crunch and whole grains. Peanut butter toast with banana was the quick breakfast or snack that required 3 ingredients and 3 minutes and provided enough energy to get through the morning or afternoon slump. 1 or 2 slices of bread went into the toaster depending on how hungry someone was. Whole wheat bread was healthier, but white bread was softer and sweeter and more nostalgic. The bread toasted until it was golden brown and slightly crispy, but not burned. The darkness level was a personal preference. Some liked it barely toasted. Others wanted it dark and crunchy. The toast popped up hot and went directly onto a plate. Peanut butter spooned from the jar while the toast was still warm. Creamy peanut butter spread smoothly across the surface. Crunchy peanut butter added texture with chopped peanut pieces throughout. Natural peanut butter separated and needed stirring first. Regular peanut butter like Skippy or Jif spread easily without any preparation. The warm toast melted the peanut butter slightly, making it easier to spread and creating a thin glossy layer across the bread. The peanut butter had to cover the toast completely edge to edge. 1 banana peeled and sliced into thin rounds with a butter knife directly over the toast. The banana slices arranged in a single layer covering the peanut butter. Some people overlapped them like shingles. Others placed them in neat rows. A few mashed the banana with a fork before spreading it on instead of slicing. The banana added natural sweetness and creamy texture and potassium and made the toast feel more substantial like an actual meal instead of just a snack. Optional toppings appeared depending on what was available and how creative someone felt. A drizzle of honey over the banana. A sprinkle of cinnamon across the top. A handful of chocolate chips scattered over while the toast was still warm so they melted slightly. A few raisins or dried cranberries pressed into the peanut butter. A thin layer of jam or jelly under the peanut butter for extra sweetness. Chia seeds sprinkled on top for added nutrition. The first bite combined crunchy toast with creamy peanut butter and sweet soft banana. The flavors worked together perfectly without competing. The peanut butter provided protein and healthy fats. The banana added fiber and natural energy from carbohydrates. cheese and crackers was the simplest possible meal or snack that barely counted as cooking but still provided protein and satisfaction when hunger arrived and effort was not available. 1 box of crackers pulled from the pantry. Saltine crackers were classic. Ritz crackers were buttery and slightly sweet. Wheat thins were crunchier and nuttier. Triscuits were hearty and woven. Club crackers were flaky and delicate. Water crackers were plain and neutral and let the cheese flavor dominate. The cracker choice mattered because different crackers paired better with different cheeses. Cheese came from the refrigerator wrapped in plastic or stored in a resealable bag. Sliced cheese from the deli counter was premium. Pre-sliced packaged cheese was convenient. Block cheese that needed slicing was most economical. Sharp cheddar was the standard. Mild cheddar for those who did not like strong flavors. Colby or Monterey Jack for something softer and creamier. Pepper Jack if they wanted heat. Swiss cheese with its distinctive holes and nutty flavor. Provolone for Italian-leaning taste. American cheese was looked down upon by cheese snobs but still tasted good on a Ritz cracker. The cheese sliced into small squares that fit perfectly on top of the crackers, or cubed into bite-sized pieces, or cut into triangles. The shape did not matter. The crackers arranged on a plate in rows or scattered casually depending on whether this was just for one person or being served to guests. The cheese pieces placed on top of each cracker or arranged separately on the plate so each person could assemble their own. Some people added extras to make it more interesting and substantial. Sliced salami or pepperoni arranged with the cheese. Grapes or apple slices as a fresh contrast to the salty crackers and cheese. A small handful of nuts scattered around the plate. A few olives if they liked them. A small bowl of mustard or honey for dipping. The first bite combined crispy salty cracker with creamy or sharp cheese. The textures contrasted perfectly. The saltiness enhanced the cheese flavor. The simplicity was the point. No cooking, no heating, no preparation beyond opening packages and slicing cheese. 2 minutes total. 1 plate. No utensils needed. Each cracker and cheese combination eaten in 1 or 2 bites. 30 quick meals. 30 moments when seniors living alone proved cooking solo was never about loneliness, it was about skill. Grilled cheese in 8 minutes. Buttered noodles when the cupboard was nearly empty. Avocado toast that felt like a real meal. Hot dogs cooked 3 different ways. These were not just recipes, they were proof that living alone never meant eating poorly. And they are disappearing. Faster than anyone realizes. The 10-minute meals are being replaced by meal kits and delivery apps and grab-and-go convenience that costs 5 times more and tastes half as good. But you just learned all 30. That means something. Drop a comment right now telling me which meal you grew up eating. Tell me which one you are making tonight. Because these meals deserve to stay on the table. Hit subscribe, save this video. Share it with someone cooking for one. These 30 meals are not coming back unless we keep them alive.